Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you a neat little trick that's going to help with driving your GPU miner from another computer. So what does that mean exactly? Well, as you can see, we're on my Ubuntu machine, and here is where I have my mining software set up and my GPU driver software. And if you didn't catch my video on how to set that stuff up and you're curious, go check it out on the channel. But anyway, so everything that we want to run is on here. And now in order to do this, in order to make this video right now and be talking about this, we have to have this thing plugged into a screen. We have to have a mouse and a keyboard hooked up. But realistically with a miner, you just want to turn this thing on and leave it be. You don't want to have to worry about hooking up to a screen. In fact, you don't even want to have to worry about buying all of those components and things if you don't have to. So what we're going to do is cover exactly how you can drive this thing from another PC, whether it's in your house, on a completely different Wi-Fi network, somewhere on the other side of the world, who cares? We're going to use what's called SSH. So to get started, just open up a new terminal, and you're going to type SSH-keygen. And now it says generating new public-private key RSA key pair. And RSA is fine, that's going to be the algorithm we're going to use, but you can do other encryption algorithms. So, what we're going to do is copy the same path, except I'm going to rename it just with this little tail end here. I'm just going to say ID RSA new. Then it's going to ask if you want to enter a passphrase. I'm not going to, but you totally can if you want. And there you go. You generate a public and private key. So if we go into cd.ssh, we type ls. I have a couple keys in there, but the ones that we just created are this one is the private, and this is the public here. So what you have to do now is you need to share the public key that you just created with the computer that you want to drive this thing from. And since we're logged in as Cornelius here, this user, this is who the key is going to be registered to log in as. So when you're on another computer, you're going to have to log in as Cornelius using this same kind of syntax here. And we'll talk about that. But the easiest way, I think, to probably try to share this key is going to be GitHub. And I kind of have this little share page set up here. And so the easiest way to do it, I'm just going to log in and I'm going to create a new repository, and I'm just going to call it RSA key new, and I'm going to make that private. You don't want anybody just getting their hands on this. So back in our SSH folder, I'm going to actually go back to our root, and I'm going to just make a copy of .ssh id rsa new.pub, and I'm just gonna give it the same name, I guess. And so that'll put it in here, and I'm gonna make a new directory called share key, and I'm going to just move ID RSA new.pub into share key. Now let's double check that it's in there. There it is. So we're going to go into share key, and we're going to do get init, and then we're going to do get remote add origin, and we're going to add our get SSH path. Nice. So I know that was a lot to unpack, but basically all I did was I copied this public key out of the SSH folder. I made a new directory so I could keep my git cloning separate, and then I just tossed the key in there. Maybe not the cleanest way to do that, but whatever. And now I'm just creating it as an initialized empty git repository, and I'm going to add the origin of the path I just created on GitHub that you saw me make. Cool. So if we do git status, obviously, if you guys are familiar with Git, you know exactly what I'm doing here. And I'm just going to make this nice and quick. So now that that's been pushed up to GitHub, you can go ahead and flip over to the PC that you're going to be driving this thing from, and the rest of the work is actually all on that device. But it's important to note before we leave that you want to make sure you understand exactly where your mining software is located. So for me, it's right in the home directory, and it's going to be this 1.42 folder. Cool. Okay, so now I'm on my Windows PC up in my office, and this is going to be the machine that I want to drive the mining on my Ubuntu from. So what we're going to do in completing this process is we're going to actually SSH into the Ubuntu machine from this machine. In other words, we're going to connect to basically the command terminal of the Ubuntu machine using SSH from this Windows PC. And as you can see right here, I'm using WSL instead of just like CMD or PowerShell. Honestly, because it makes life a lot easier to go from like Linux to Linux. But you can do SSH just straight up from Windows. It's not really much different. The gist of what you got to do now is we've done sort of the heavy lifting. So here's our repository like we saw. And I went ahead and made this public real quick just to be able to easily clone this because I'm using like an org instead of my own personal GitHub. It's not a huge deal. I'm going to probably delete this repo as soon as we're done. But either way, let's go ahead and clone this. And once you have that clone down, it's going to be called RSA key new. So we're going to CD into there. And now that we're inside this folder, we can say, all right, what's in here? ID RSA new.pub. What we have to do is get that public key into our .ssh folder on either WSL or Windows, wherever you're kind of operating this from. So now that we know that it's in here, the easiest way to do this is just going to be to go cp RSA key new / ID RSA new.pub, and we're going to copy that to .ssh. I'm going to call it the same exact thing. Nice. So now if we just do ls.ssh, you can see that our new ID RSA is in here, the public key. Awesome. And now here comes the magic part. All you're going to do now is just type SSH. And then remember we talked about that path from your Ubuntu desktop. This is going to be that exact same syntax that we saw, which originally was kind of like in this position. We're going to type that here. And immediately pressing enter, we're going to be prompted for the password. And we're in. You can see that our header here, or our root here, has switched over from Joe C at desktop blah 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 to Cornelius. And this is the name of our Ubuntu machine. So we are now in the Ubuntu machine. And to prove it, if I hit ls, there's that 1.42 file folder right there, which is going to be the LOL miner. So now the final touch is all you got to do is simply go in to 1.42 and just do something like mine ETH or something like that. And there you go. You can kick off the mining script from here. But hold on. We're not done, right? So the problem with this is if you kick this off, you can't do anything right now. Like you could close this terminal and it will close this mining operation here. Watch. So now if I open Ubuntu again, it's going to completely open a brand new Ubuntu. And that mining operation is gone. See, we're back on our desktop. We're not on the Ubuntu PC anymore. And that's a problem. What if we want to be able to kick off the miner and then just like back away from this and like do other stuff or like turn our computer off or what have you? Well, it turns out you can actually completely do that with a tool called tmux. So first let's SSH back into the box. And you're going to want to install tmux using apt. But once you have it, and go ahead and look it up on Google or something to figure out exactly the syntax, it's going to look something like this. And then once it's on your machine, you can actually go like this and type tmux, and it will create a new session. If you hit Control B and then you hit the $, you can actually rename the session. So we're going to rename this to mine ETH. And now that we've got it renamed to mine ETH, we're going to do exactly what we did before. CD into 1.42. And we're going to run that mine ETH script. And now the miner's going to boot up just like we saw. But check this out. We hit Control and B and then D, and we can detach from that session. And if we hit tmux list sessions, there's mine ETH right there. Now, this one is one that we created by accident, so let's take a look at what's going in there. Let's see if there's anything happening there. So we could do attach session, add the T flag, and we'll hit 0. And you can see nothing's happening in here. So I'm going to back out of it. And now instead of attach session, I'm going to do kill session. And that's how you cancel one. So now if we list sessions again, you're going to see just mine ETH is running. So if we attach to mine ETH, of course, that thing's still going. And we were up here somewhere when we started this. So you could see that this is still putting out fresh output. So it's totally working. And the coolest part about it is I can close Ubuntu. I can open a new one. I can re-SSH back into my box. And I can hit tmux list sessions. And there's mine ETH still. It's like we never left. And you can go ahead and turn your computer completely off and this will still work. So I hope that was useful for you guys. It's a nice, neat little trick that I've taken advantage of in the mining experience so far. And yeah, it beats the hell out of going down into your basement and plugging in a monitor or a TV or something. But all right, cheers.